Hey guys, welcome back to the Plumbing Webmasters podcast. I'm Madison. Today we're going to shake things up a little bit. We're going to be talking about content creation, but from the perspective of one of our content writers.
Yes, indeed.
Yes, we have Blair Fawcett with us today. She is
Hello.
one of our spunky content writers here at the Webmasters.
Very spunky.
Yes, and I'm going to be interviewing her and asking some questions about her process. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Blair, can you tell us a little bit, just a basic background of what led up to working with the Webmasters?
Absolutely. So I have a degree in creative writing from the University of North Texas.
Okay.
And after I graduated, I became a teacher for a few years in the public school system. And after that, I decided I really wanted to focus on journaling, writing, becoming a journalist. And that's where I kind of found the Webmasters.
So cool. You caught the bug, and you've been writing since you were in grade school, you said?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
That's nice. A lot of our content writers, they start with one different degree, like anthropology, I think was Shabnam's, one of our other writers, and they end up in a few years writing as a career. But it's cool to see somebody who's been writing for most of her entire kids since you're a kid. That's amazing. Yeah. So, man, well, why don't we go ahead? That's a really cool history. Why don't we go ahead and start on your writing process?
Yes.
Before we start big, though, let's go on a smaller scale.
Okay.
Let's take a single service page. Let's say water heater installation or something like that. How would you start planning that page? And what's your process for working that page?
Excellent. I'm so glad you asked. So I focus on two different parts of the question. I focus on, number one, how do I optimize the page for SEO?
Okay. Yeah.
And then the other is, how do I make it where it's really easy for the customer to read?
Yeah, it's really important. Yeah.
It's really important. So the first thing that I do in order to optimize the page for SEO is I make sure the word count is correct and make sure that the headers are aligned with the subject matter. I make sure that there's a call to action, there's a linked phone number, so the customer always has easy access to the company, to what they know that the company does, so they can say, okay, so clearly this company does, what did you say? It was a
water heater installation.
Water heater installation, absolutely. So if I'm the customer and I say, you know what, I need a new water heater, this is the company that popped up, and they popped up because I have my page SEO optimized, that's great.
Okay, so you've clearly done like your keyword research and made sure that it's ingrained into the page itself.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you said that. Keyword research is so crucial for this aspect. Thank you for mentioning that.
Okay. Now you said you had a second goal as well. That was just making for an easier reading experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how are you going about that?
So I do this thing called kiss it, don't kill it. Kiss it means keep it short and sweet. Kill it is keep it long and lengthy.
That's cute. Kiss it, don't kill it. Nice.
So what I do there is I make sure that it's direct, it's to the point, and I also make sure that it's, the customer has access to exactly what's going on in that page versus just long, lengthy, tedious sentences that are kind of missing the point.
Yeah. No, that's so important. A natural reading experience just makes for it's a great reading for the client, but it also feeds back into the conversion process of actually turning a prospect into a sale, which is what our clients want.
Exactly.
So what sort of stuff are you doing to create that natural experience and to maximize that conversion process?
Again, I'm so glad you asked. I really think about it. I think perspective is so important. So I imagine two things. I imagine that I am the customer who's looking for a service, like I mentioned earlier. And I also imagine that I'm the company. So what is the message I really want to convey from the company, right? And I do one thing that is really important that I do is I do a logical, an ethical, and an emotional appeal. And we may not be able to get into this in this interview, but essentially what I do is I make sure that, let's say that I have a burst pipe in my home, right? And I'm the customer and I want a service. I'm going to look for something that's logical. It makes sense to me. Like, yes, I need a plumbing repair right now. Ethical, okay, this company has, they're insured, they have some certifications. These things are important from an ethical standpoint. And then finally, we have the pathos, which is like, It's emotional. I've actually had a burst pipe in my home.
Yeah.
And it was terrible. So I really feel for the customer there.
That's so cool. So you've been able to take a lot of your own experience, both as a teacher and as a homeowner,
Yes.
and feed that back into your writing. That's
Yes.
great.
Yes.
So you mentioned like different sorts of appeals you can make. You can make the ethical, you can make the emotional and the logical. That's really feeding back into that natural reading experience. And so many plumbing websites are missing that from their website. They focus on the sale. This is why our services are great, but they don't really relate it back to the customer, which is so important.
Yeah.
Now, that's something that many websites struggle with, but how do you make sure that you have that balance between, those SEO elements and clearly displaying the services with that natural reading experience? Is that a struggle to balance those?
No, well, I actually have a really good team that works with me all the time. So I have graphic designers who make sure that the website layout is really clean and pristine and nice, that all the buttons kind of click where they're supposed to go. And then also something that I personally do is I make sure that all of the pictures that are associated with the services, they kind of match what exactly is going on that page. Here's something that I love is sometimes companies will give us a whole bunch of pictures that we can work with. And so we kind of like edit them, we like work with them. And
yes, pictures are so nice when they actually give them to us. Yeah, we sometimes have to work with stock photos. We definitely don't want to. If we can avoid it, it's okay. But if we can get those original photos, that's fantastic.
It is. It's authentic.
Now, taking a tangent off of that, you've mentioned this is just one of many non-text elements.
Yes.
What other sort of non-text elements really feed into your process? They're important for the page.
So I think for me, something that we do is we incorporate righteous reviews, which is, to me, is so important for the customer to have easy access to the reviews and then also have access to the actual services themselves. That way we can kind of ground it and say, you know what, this is this and this is this. So that's one thing that I like. Something else that we do is we, as I touched on earlier, we have a really clean look. We really work with our customers to make sure that their plumbing website looks exactly the way they want their plumbing website to look like. So we kind of personalize it. We make it really stand out as a beacon of what that company's message is and what they're about.
Okay, now is that from like a graphical standpoint or like a formatting? What sort of styling are you thinking of?
So I'm thinking, from my end as a content writer, what I do is I do a lot of research into the company. I see what they're about. I see how long they've been around. I see, every single company is slightly different. So whenever I work with a company, I make sure to incorporate those individual characteristics, those little details are worked into the page as much as I can, while also continuing to have it SEO optimized and also have all of the easy reading. So I actually have a very multi-pronged approach.
Okay. Now, speaking of reading, there's a challenge that many content writers and really businesses in general face today. There's a saying that you'll see on the internet and basically anywhere you read. It's TLDR, which stands for too long, didn't read. Now,
what a travesty.
Now, so many people are crunched for time, and maybe they're browsing for services while they're at work, or they're at their Pilates class or something like that, and they need to find information quickly. How do you deal with this challenge in a way that ensures that people actually get to the content that you want them to?
Madison, you've actually hit the heart of the issue. The best way to I think address that is to make sure that it is a pleasant reading experience and that each of those things, they don't feel like they're hammered in. Like, I never want my customers to feel like, wow, I feel like I got sold to. I want my customers to feel like, oh, this is informative. It's telling me about this company. It's telling me about this service. And that's what a good website will do. That is what a good message will do.
I think a lot of great websites, when you're reading them, it feels almost like a conversation that you're having with a person, not like somebody telling you, okay, this is how X, Y, and Z goes. it's such a relatable experience that it feels like you're talking with a person.
Exactly. That's what it should feel like. It should feel very natural,
Yeah.
very organic.
Well, that's really cool. Now, if you had what would you say are your most important takeaways if you really want to make sure that you provide that great reading experience for the customer?
So I would say that some of my most important takeaways for a customer, is that what you say? Could you rephrase that real quick? Just because I like hearing what
absolutely.
You have to say. Yeah.
So what do you think are the most important elements in your content writing that are providing a great user experience for somebody who's visiting the site maybe for the first time, they need services, and they're trying to get information?
Something that I think is kind of unique to my writing is I put in some imagery, I put in some metaphors, I put in some details.
There's that creative writing.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I mean, because it's, so one of the things that you can do is versus like saying, you need blah, 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 and describe a burst pipe. Like, oh, burst pipe is in your home. That's terrible, la, la, la. You kind of go on and you kind of, because that way everybody feels emotionally invested in the process, you know?
So you're scene setting.
Exactly. Scene setting, getting some imagery in there. You know, everyone likes a good metaphor.
Oh, yeah. And so many plumbing websites, when you read through them, they're so dry.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I get it. I know what plumbing is, but it doesn't this doesn't feel like it relates to me.
Yes.
But the way you're describing it, it sounds like, okay, a person can see their situation going on the page.
Absolutely.
Well, that's really cool. Now, we've talked about it from a small scale perspective, single page. Let's blow up this perspective and look at it from a whole cross-site view. How are you going to make sure as a whole that your content across the entire website is successful? It's cohesive, it's informative, it's not overlapping. What are you going to do to try to ensure that?
So that's another really great question, because whenever you're managing a really big website, I mean, you've got a lot of pages. You've got 60 pages that you've got to make sure have a really similar message, that it all works together. And to that end, on the front end, all the research you do at the very outset, the very get-go, you're going to reap the benefits of that as you go through the website and create the content.
That's a good point, yeah.
Yeah.
So you're knowing ahead of time what all the services are, so you're not accidentally overlapping on content.
Absolutely.
And what else are you doing?
So something else that I'm doing is I'm making sure to review and convey the company's message in a succinct way. Again, I'm making sure that, you know what, this company really advertises trenchless plumbing repairs. Let's make sure that that message is clear, and let's hyperlink back to it. Because if there's a related service, you know what? Let's hop back there. Let's make it really easy for the customer to have access to these different pages in this big website. You know, it's a great undertaking. It's a big undertaking to create a website.
Oh yeah.
And with that comes a lot of responsibility.
Oh yeah. I know from experience that process can take weeks to go through. Sometimes maybe even a month, depending on the size of the site.
Yes.
Yeah. Now a lot of formatting, a lot of navigational structure is going in. The graphic design team is helping with that.
Yes.
And of course, we have people like Amberlynn who are going in and editing it, making sure the message is consistency.
Love Amberlynn.
It's so much going into that. Well, that's really cool. I'm so glad that we got to have you with us. Now, Blair.
Yes.
Let's say that up to this point, nobody was listening whatsoever. Okay. What would you say to plumbers if you had one thing you wanted them to take away from our discussion? What advice would you give to them?
That's a great question. So I would say, hi, how are you? I would say, dear plumbing friend, that a well-designed website can work wonders for your company's image. A really good website can tell the customers who you are in a clear way. Your website is your first point of contact with a lot of your new customers and some of your old customers. So by getting a good website out there, you're putting a good foot forward and on the internet and in real life.
It's awesome. And you're balancing that SEO experience with natural reading, goodness, so that people can not only find you, but choose you as well. That's awesome.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, cool. Thanks for coming in, Blair.
Thank you.
We'll see what we're going to talk about next time. In the meantime, thank you so much for listening in, plumbers. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.